this is what the enrollment was involved. Everyone was required to have a minimum of 1-year commitment. Each mentor was required to contact their mentee at least 4 contacts per month. This contacts could be made through emails, in-home visits, community outings, and email. And that's really, even though it was just 4 contacts per month, most of our mentors actually contact their mentee multiple times. They would set up outings to go catch a movie, get together for dinner, they would meet with the family. But again, that was just the minimum requirement for our mentors. So again, they were supposed to check in with program staff, again, and seek support from the rehab psychologist and the vocational counselor. It was a great resource, but unfortunately, for some reason, it wasn't greatly utilized. Maybe it was because they didn't really understand the purpose of a rehab psychologist or a vocational counselor, even though we made different attempts to try to get them to call the rehab psychologist or call the vocational counselor. But again, it was just there as an added resource. And again, there was no specific problems. I mean, they could just literally pick up the phone, call the rehab psychologist, or call the vocational counselor, and it was a free service to them as well. So yeah, so let me emphasize, this was actually it was a free service to our participants. So what we did was, in the beginning of the program, when we first enrolled a mentee, we would ask him to do an initial assessment. From then on, every 3 months thereafter, once they were in a relationship with a mentor, we did the same assessment. At the conclusion of the program, when they were either back to work or back to school, we would do the final assessment. And that was actually 4 months after their enrollment in school or when they would begin working. Just to ensure that they were able to maintain employment or education, we would have a lot of men go ahead and enroll in school, but then they would realize that it was either too difficult for them at the time, or they just weren't quite ready, and a lot of times they would drop out, and then they would go back and continue interacting with their mentor. We would also just get a lot of individuals that sometimes some of our mentees would want to, say, work at Starbucks. They would get a job at Starbucks, and then they would realize, especially with TBI, that it was just too fast-paced and a little too demanding for them. So then again, they would quit and get back into the program. So again, so like I was saying, so once they were in either back to school or back to work, we would do the final assessment just to ensure that they were successful. Once they were able to maintain employment or stay in school for 4 months, they were considered a success and they were done with the program. Now, unfortunately, we didn't do any follow-up once they left the program, which again, that's one of the things that we would improve on if we came up with another, if we were able to be funded again. So this is the process for the mentor, again, to get enrolled in the program. So again, they would just complete a profile form. If you're interested in seeing any of the forms that I'm talking about, please let me know, give me your card, and I can provide you with all the forms that we used. So again, the profile form would just have a lot of demographic information, would ask questions about their disability, their interest, and of course their location. And then we would also ask if they were at one point working or going to school. And then this all had to be after their injury. Then I would go ahead and have meet with them. From the meeting, of course, I got a pretty good feeling as to whether they would be a good mentor for our program. After that, we would do a background check. And then finally, they would do the 12-hour mentor training. Now, initially, what we did with the 12-hour mentor training, in the beginning of the program, we actually did it in 1 day. So you can imagine for someone with a spinal cord injury or a traumatic brain injury, that was just a little too much. So what we did, we ended up breaking it up into 2 6-hour training sessions. So we would do it on a Saturday and then the following Saturday. And of course, we had a lot of breaks and snacks and food. And that just really seemed to work. For the mentee, they had to, again, complete a profile form with the same questions, again, just to kind of get an idea of what their interests were, and also to find out what their educational goal or employment goal was. From then, I would go ahead and meet with the family, and then I would just go ahead and basically explain the program to the family, answer any questions that they would have, and then finally, they would have the consent form. Now, I actually split this two up because I actually found that a lot of the times when I was meeting with the families, I would sit there and meet with them, and sometimes some of these meetings can go from an hour to 2 hours a lot of the times. So, stay for dinner or whatnot. And sometimes I felt that if I had them sign the consent form there, then they felt pressured to go ahead and sign. Especially a lot of the family members really wanted their son or daughter to sign up or enroll in the program. And I just felt that a lot of the times the mentees weren't really buying into it. So then later on, when we did the assessments or when they had to meet their mentor out in the community, they wouldn't show up. And then when I would get them on the phone, they would tell me, well, I'm not really interested. So I found out that if I actually split the two and I would give them some time to think about it, they would actually enroll and then stay in the program. Great. And then, of course, at the end, we would match them with their mentor. So again, recruitment of mentors and mentees. So this is actually Will and Hung. They're one of the stars of our video. So again, who qualified? For mentors, again, personal experience with acquired disability. Again, so we look for individuals with disabilities. If they did not have a disability, what we would do, or what I would look for, it would be an individual that had experience working with individuals with disabilities. So a lot of the times there were professionals that worked in a related field, therapists, psychologists, or sometimes I would get caretakers. I had a guy who, his son was a quadriplegic, his son passed away, and then he decided he wanted to mentor and give back and work with another young adult because he was the primary caretaker of his son. Again, they had to be successful with their own education or career goals. We felt that you couldn't teach someone or help someone get back into school or get back into work if you weren't working yourself or going back to school. So that was really important. A lot of the times we would get individuals that were great, just conversation-wise, they were great just to talk to. But again, they weren't working, they were going to school, so we just felt that we couldn't really use them. Again, they would have to get screened and trained. And again, of course, 1 year commitment for the mentors. For the mentees, they were actually 6 to 26-year-olds. And this was actually the age that the Rehabilitation Services Administration gave us. That's kind of the age that they wanted us to focus on, which is a little unfortunate. Sometimes I had 27-year-olds who would have been great for the program, but again, we were not able to enroll them in the program. And I just also found, again, just from experience, that some of the older mentees, a lot of the times were a little more successful and a little more committed when it came to sticking with the program. A lot of the 16-year-olds, I mean, you can sit there and talk to them about college or work, but that just seems so far away for them. Again, they would have to have TBI, an SCI, or an orthopedic disability. So we did focus on traumatic brain injuries and spinal cord injuries, but we did have mentees with spinal bifida, cerebral palsy, and other disabilities. And basically, as long as we were able to accommodate the mentee, meaning we had a mentor with a similar disability, we would actually take him in. Again, they had to be ready to go to college or integrate back into the community or go back into the workforce. And those were the only real requirements that we had. We didn't really ask for anything else. So as long as they were interested in going back to school and they were in the age group that we were looking for, they were able to enroll in the program. And again, it was a 1 year minimum commitment, but it was an at-will program. So at any time, they could cancel and say they weren't interested in participating or continue with the relationship. So we did a lot of community outreach, again, hospitals, rehab centers. We had a huge area that we covered geographically, and I'll actually talk a little more about that. So again, I would do a lot of presentations to independent living centers. This is just to give you ideas when it comes to recruitment. Again, colleges, universities, that was mostly for mentors since, again, we're trying to get young adults into college or universities. Again, high schools, surprisingly enough, I actually did not get a lot of mentees in high schools. There was a couple high schools that I actually did work with, a couple districts, and I was actually, the mentoring program was part of the student's IEP, individualized educational plan, which was pretty cool. So I got to sit in some of the meetings, and the mentoring program was actually part of the support system for these young adults. So the schools really bought into it, but again, I think maybe just population-wise, they didn't have the population that we were looking for, so we did not get a lot of participants from there. Again, community centers, support groups, I did a lot of presentations to support groups, advocacy groups, libraries, and internet, things like Craigslist, volunteer.com, and public places. Sometimes I would just see someone in a wheelchair, I would approach them, and just, I would have a brochure or a card and just start talking to them about what I did and to see if they were interested in participating. And I got a couple people like that. So sometimes you just got to be creative with how to outreach. So again, this is actually in the yellow, you'll see the area that the program covered, 24,000 square miles. So pretty much all the yellow, we actually had either a mentee or a mentor in those areas. So we covered quite a bit of ground. In fact, sometimes I would have a meeting in Fresno, I would call the mentee to remind them. I would drive to Fresno. The mentee would forget. They wouldn't write it down. So yeah, we did a lot of traveling, a lot of driving. So again, it's a listing of all the counties: Alameda, Contra Costa, Fresno, Merced, Monterey, Sacramento, San Benito, San Francisco, San Joaquin, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, Sonoma, and Stanislaus. Orientation and training, again, we would do an interview with the coordinator for the mentors. We would go through the mentor manual. Now, I was going to bring a copy of the mentor manual. It was actually created by Dr. Penny Hogue, who's in the back, and a couple other staff members from the hospital helped put this manual together. And it's a great manual. Like I said, I wish I had a copy of it so I can kind of show you guys. But yeah, that's kind of what we use to train our mentors. And again, if you're interested in receiving any of these materials, just let me know, and I can provide them for you. The robot, which actually stands for Resource Options for Back on Track, that was another resource that was given to all the participants, and I'll talk a little bit more about it. And again, our 12-hour mentor training. The robot, again, Resource Options for Back on Track, an educational, vocational, recreational, and transportation resource guide intended for individuals with disabilities. So it's pretty comprehensive. This actually was a starting guide, or a starting guide that would actually give a lot of the families. A lot of the families would tell me that they would get resources at the hospital when they left, but a lot of the times, a lot of families told me that they found it really overwhelming, just the whole hospital experience, especially with their son or daughter's injury. They would tell me that, you know, I met so many people, I signed so many forms, I was given so much information, but once we got home, we don't know where all that stuff went. So we would give them the guide. If any of you guys are interested in a copy, we can actually get you a copy as well. So it covers everything from, just to give you a quick little readout, all the community colleges in the area, California State Universities, financial aid resources. We have accessible gyms and adaptive PE programs, public libraries, internet resources, just a bunch of resources. It's a great tool. So I highly encourage you guys to get a copy, especially if you're in California. Again, the 12-hour mentor training was facilitated by myself and the rehab psychologist. Like I said, we actually broke it down into 2 sessions, and that seemed to work a lot better. Topics discussed were history of the mentoring program, disability awareness, disability etiquette, the foundation of a mentoring relationship, knowing how to listen, knowing how to give feedback. Again, learning and teaching skills, mentor responsibilities, practicing the skills that were learned. So we would do a lot of role playing with a lot of the mentors. And a lot of these sessions were great. A lot of the mentors got to meet other mentors and just share with them. They would exchange emails and get support from other mentors. Again, matching mentors with mentees, which is basically the most important step. That's our mentor Franklin with his mentee Gerardo at one of the outings. So this is the criteria that we use for matching. Again, geographical location. We felt that the mentor had to live within the same geographical location so that they would be aware of other resources within the same community, and at the same time, it would be easier for them to meet in person or meet at their home. They had to have similar interest. Of course, if I found a guy who was a big football fan, I would try to match him with a mentor who was a big football fan as well. Or if someone wanted to be an architect, I would try to match him with a mentor who was an architect or worked in a related field. And again, they have to have the same disability. Now, it was about a 60-40 breakdown when it came to mentors. About 60% of them had a disability, about 40% did not have a disability. So a lot of our mentees were about a year post-injury. So if they were just getting out of the hospital, I would make sure that the mentee actually had a mentor with the same disability, just because I thought that was really important. Now, the mentees that sometimes requested a mentor without a disability, a lot of the times they were injured for quite a bit, so they had a really good understanding of their disability, and they just needed more help with enrolling in school or going through the process of finding a job. And that's kind of where the mentor kind of came in and just kind of talked about their experience of enrolling themselves in school. And again, the initial interview, which is key. For example, the prior picture that Franklin and Gerardo, you would not think if you were to see them that they would actually be a good match. But it was just a great relationship. And hopefully, if I have some time, I'll be able to show you the video. So what did we learn? Again, what works? Mentors and mentees meeting face to face. Now, as you saw the map, we had a huge coverage area. And we also had really small communities that were rural. So a lot of the times, we had a population of 1,000 and we had a mentee there. we really sometimes couldn't find a mentor. So a lot of the times we would enroll a mentee, and then we would try to find a mentor in that community, and we weren't able to. So we would actually pair them up with a mentor who would do an email relationship or a phone relationship. So at least we felt that they were getting something, some kind of support. But again, meeting face-to-face just was optimum. Again, being the same ethnicity, it was not always the case, but sometimes, for example, if the family was monolingual speaking, just to give you an example, Hong and Will that were actually pictured, they both speak Vietnamese. The family's monolingual. So for whatever reason, I think maybe language barrier, they weren't really informed when he came to their son's disability. So their son would try to explain it to them, but he always felt misunderstood. He felt that the parents didn't really get him. But what was really cool when when the parents met the mentor, then the parents were able to ask questions themselves. Even though we always stressed to the parents that their mentor-mentee relationship was confidential, and we wanted their son to have that, or daughter to have that relationship with their mentor, we did encourage them to ask questions, just general questions, how to better support your son, how to better support your daughter, and that was just, that just really seemed to work. Again, the mentor training sessions, with scheduling, it was really tough to schedule more than 2 training sessions a year. So what I would do is I would give the mentor the training manual for them to review on their own, and then I would go ahead and meet with them to answer any questions or address any concerns that they had. And then we would match them and then schedule them in one of the 2 training sessions that would happen in a year. Something that we want to improve, we would like to do just training sessions throughout the year. Not necessarily with Penny or myself, but just other members of the community to kind of come in and just kind of give talks on Project Hired or whatnot. Contact logs, we did have every mentor train a contact log. Now, some of them didn't. There was always rebels who didn't turn in the contact logs. But again, it was also a great tool for them to tell us if they had a question. For example, we had a mentee who was asking his mentor if he was able to drink alcohol. The guy was over 21 years old, and he wanted to drink after a traumatic brain injury. The mentor was not too sure. We always told our mentors, if you're not sure, just ask. We'll get you the information. So I spoke with Dr. Tao Duong, who was one of the principal investigators for the study. And of course, she passed information along that wasn't a good idea with all the details. Passed it along to the mentor, and the mentor passed the information along to the mentee. So again, contact logs were a great tool. A mentor stipend. We did provide the mentors with a stipend. It was $100 a month, and it was given every 2 months. So they would get $200 every 2 months. Now, it was a little high, and because of the stipend, we got mentors all the time calling in, wanting to be mentors. But again, that's why we went through all the process of screening a lot of mentors who weren't necessarily good candidates for our program. But the mentor stipend does seem to work. And a lot of the times, a lot of the stipends were actually given back or funneled back to the mentee. So a lot of the times, the money was used to pay for the movies when they went out, or for gas, transportation. Again, networking with other agencies really seems to work. So again, it's always a great idea to just network with them. And it goes part of with the program outreach. A lot of social workers are really busy, so it's always good to kind of hit them up all the time, with the brochure, calling them up, following up with them so that, again, your program stays in the top of their mind and they can always refer mentees to you. Matching within a month of mentee enrollment. We try to do our best to get our mentees matched right away. But like I was saying before, sometimes we had mentees in real small communities, so it made it a real challenge to match them within a month. And a lot of the times we waited too long, they would lose interest and they would drop out. So again, matching within a month would be best. And again, the rehab psychologist and vocational counselor, that was just a great idea and just really, really worked when it was utilized. And sometimes there were simple questions as, how can I better support my mentee? I feel that I'm trying to monopolize what we want to do. So Penny would talk to them and kind of give them some ideas and some feedback. What does not work? Only phone and email relationships. Again, if the person lived in a really isolated area, we felt that it was the best tool available. But again, it's not optimum. So face-to-face always works best. Big coverage area. Next time, I think we're only going to put it down to about 2 counties. I think we spread ourselves out too thin, especially with only 2 staff members running the program. Matching just to match, again, it's not a good idea. Sometimes towards the end of the program, we would just try to get people matched. But again, if it was in the right disability, mentee way too young, mentor a lot older, sometimes it just didn't work. And that kind of goes with a big age gap. not checking in with mentors, so it's really important to always kind of be on top of the mentors to ensure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Ideas for improvement, making meeting. So we actually, towards the end, we decided to make it mandatory that they had to meet with a vocational counselor, so that at least we would come up with a plan that then the mentor can enforce. I don't know why we didn't do this earlier, but again, that's area for improvement. Again, smaller program coverage area, mentor-mentee group meetings or outings. A lot of mentors wanted us to schedule a meeting or an outing with other mentors and mentees. So again, they can network with each other, give each other support. And again, we didn't do it just because the area was so big that we had. So with a smaller coverage area, that would really work. And other studies, other mentoring programs that were also funded actually did that approach, and it really worked out for them. They really seemed to enjoy it. So if we get funded again, we plan on doing that. Building a database of mentors before enrolling mentees, which we actually have now, it will be a great help. A lot of the times we would get the mentee, but then we have to, again, allocate a lot of resources in finding a mentor for that mentee in one specific county. So now that we have a huge database, we can get people matched fairly quickly. Mandatory community outings and in-home visits. Again, I think if we make it mandatory that they actually have to meet more often. I think some of the mentors sometimes they would do one meeting a month. It wasn't everyone, but some would do that. And again, they didn't really build a really good relationship with their mentee. And again, drop mentors who do not turn in contact logs. Again, that just we keep track of kind of what they're doing. So again, that's my presentation. Again, if you guys are more interested in hearing more about the statistics and the findings of our study, Stephanie Hayner-Klakowski, she's going to be presenting on the program as well too. Again, if you have any questions, concerns, please let me know. Nope? Great, thank you.